This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya, from the RUTO School of Government. In this segment, we'll summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of March 2021, and I am Tuem.
I am CS.
And I am Miss K. Again, in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, crisis looms as vaccines lie idle. Standard, inside MP's fierce battle for BBI's soul. And the Star, skyrocketing COVID-19 cases overwhelm ICUs. How depressing. Tuem, what do you have to tell us about the Daily Nation and the Star?
Mrs. K. Now, some wise man once said, "Let me control the media and I will turn any nation into a herd of pigs." Question is, have Kenyans been turned into a herd of pigs? Consider our thoughts. If you haven't noticed this week, the Daily Nation and the Star have run stories on COVID vaccine scandals and Kenya's death levels. Never mind that on the death story, the Star simply divided the amount of death Kenya took in 2020 by 365 days. How lazy. On the surface, the stories look credible. But if you're to look keenly, both dailies have given a wide path to three major stories. One is a Magufuli state funeral. Two, the media blitz by Uhuru Kenyatta's pause in Dodoma when he paused his speech to give way to the Adhan. And three, the mass exodus of RUTO allies to new political formations and the removal of William Ruto from Jubilee. And the question we want to ask is why? In answering this question, we would like to ask who benefits from a media blackout of these three stories. Cui bono? Who benefits from casting government as debt-burdened, full of scandal and reckless? It can only be one person, and his name is William Ruto. And we say this because there is a track record of him attacking the very government he serves in the same way the Star and Daily Nation are going about it. But more importantly, for a man who never shies away from the camera, or a man who's always too eager to appear at funerals, a man who is very keen on a photo op or photo ops with border riders and cobblers, where is Ruto? Why is he hiding? Or where is he hiding? Is he okay? Is he hiding from COVID? Or are the Daily Nation and Star aware of something we are not? Are they hiding Ruto's nakedness? Bottom line is, don't just read headlines and believe them. Like Roger Stone says, the media is either evil or lazy. Go both. But if you want to believe them, Misawa too, we can't stop you from being a herd of pigs.
I like that. Don't want to be part of the pigs. But before I will also comment on those COVID headlines in the Daily Nation and the Star. But before we do that, I want us to do a little segue and talk about the Standard and Parliament and BBI.
Yes, absolutely.
The Standard. Once more, we foray into the BBI fray. Parliament is engaged in a battle for the soul of BBI. The bill is finally in Parliament, and a joint committee is fully seized in dissecting it to generate a report for a committee of the whole House. Now, there has been some commentary and reflection on the role of Parliament. Some schools of thought would like us to take for granted that Parliament's role in the BBI process is ceremonial, that Parliament is simply a conveyor belt. There is, however, a different school of thought that is emerging. Senior Counsel Senator James Orengo has warned against remarks that the role of Parliament is ceremonial. I agree with my learned senior. That notion of Parliament as a conveyor belt, that Parliament can't amend the bill, appears nowhere in the Constitution, nor in any other law, nor even in any judicial decision.
Absolutely.
It is a notion that is in vogue purely by force of popular reason.
Absolutely.
So come, let us reason together. For now, I'd like to focus my appeal on history, specifically legal tradition. Why? Because when we consider the various sources of law in Kenya and the hierarchy of laws, the courts, in interpreting the law and its import, will consider our legal traditions and practices, especially where the Constitution and Acts of Parliament are silent and where there exists no judicial precedent. Since independence in 1963, there have been at least 38 amendments to Kenya's constitutions, and there's a rich history leading up to the prevailing dispensation. The salient issue I would like to highlight for now is that Parliament has always been an instrumental agent in articulating our constitutional order. It may not always have been a perfect arbiter in negotiating our various constitutional settlements, but it has always been a necessary agent in doing so. I argue that we should not now be resigned to the idea that they are dispensable in this process by suggesting that the august house of our representatives has been reduced to a conveyor belt. Let me put it how a litigator would. If that had indeed been the intention of the drafters of our constitution, for Parliament's role to be ceremonial and to depart from the lengthy tradition of their involvement, then there would have been nothing easier than for the drafters to explicitly state as much. In the final analysis, Parliament should be fully seized of its role in the process, and if, as our representatives to whom the people have delegated our sovereign power, they deem it necessary to better articulate some of the issues contained in the bill, then let them do so and bring it to us in referendum for our final determination.
Excellent.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, isn't Parliament the one that changed the current constitution that we have
Absolutely.
to what we currently have, from what it previously was? They took
Yes.
out regional governments,
Yes.
they took out prime minister posts,
Yes.
and they can put all those things back in. Nothing should stop them. Feel free to exercise your legislative authority. You
Yes.
are an arm of government.
Yes.
Don't believe I'm giving a pep talk to parliamentarians, but here I am.
Absolutely.
Anyway, back again, I'd like to speak about the state of the media in this country and on media reporting and the Kenyan public. I will say the following. We do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. In other words, one believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them.
Yes.
And Ivan Pavlov, a Russian psychologist, proved that this is true when he conducted an experiment with a dog, a bell, and food.
Yes.
So Pavlov would ring a bell before giving the dog food. And every day for the duration of the experiment, Pavlov would only feed the dog after ringing the bell. And with time, the dog was conditioned to associate the bell with food, so that whenever the bell was rung, the dog salivated.
Yes.
So like Pavlov's dog, the media is conditioning Kenyans' minds. And it is conditioning our minds to a corruption bell that rings and we salivate.
Yes.
Is the media conditioning us to sometimes salivate on falsehoods?
Absolutely.
As 2M rightly said.
Yes.
So yesterday the Star speculated that a new scandal was in the offing concerning COVID vaccines.
Yeah.
Today the Daily Nation is asking whether the slow rollout of vaccines in the context of the rise in COVID infections is as a result of deliberate subversion, negligence, or indifference. The media is preparing us to believe that corruption will happen. They are ringing the bell.
Yeah.
And the Kenyan people, we are salivating in anticipation of the scandal. This is obvious Pavlovian conditioning. Kindly,
Absolutely.
do not bite.
Yes.
Besides, all this negativity can only stifle creativity and development. And as President Uhuru Kenyatta said in his Madaraka Day speech last year, and I will quote in case you've forgotten, if we repeatedly feed our national psyche with negative energy, we become a nation of angry people. Yet dreams cannot flourish in a negative environment whose main currency is anger. I think that's
beautiful.
the end of what I will say there.
Beautiful.
But I will say that we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, thoughtful, or just plain lazy? And I think based on our thoughts, 2M, Daily Nation and Star should just be hit
Absolutely.
in the bin.
Yeah, in fact,
Out.
if you bought it today, you should probably use it as toilet paper.
For tufunga nyama.
Yeah, that's the Nation in the Star. If you bought the Nation today, please use it as toilet paper.
Funga nyama now. So I think that the Standard gives us our winning headline. I do like it. It has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
Let me read it again.
Yes.
Inside MP's fierce battle for BBI soul. And there you have it, our winning headline from the Standard. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the cartoons for you. We ask ourselves, are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, effective, or just plain lazy? And I have to say that all of the cartoons today, after our own review, have been pessimistic, exceedingly pessimistic. Therefore, we're tossing them all out on the basis of toxic negativity.
Yes. Excellent.
And now on to our final thought. But before we get there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification button and the like one.
Now, our final thought, it is inspired by the Kapenguria 6, the case of Regina versus Jomo Kenyatta and 5 others.
All through this week, we are looking at famous trials that changed the world and affected the course of history. Today, we explore the trial of the Kapenguria 6. The date is 7th October 1952. Kiambu Senior Chief Warohio wa Kongo, a prominent Christian anti-Mau Mau leader, seated back left in his Hudson saloon car, well-dressed and relaxed, en route to his home in Gashie. This was the final trigger for action. As the car approached the vicinity of where the village market sits today, 3 men wearing colonial police uniforms flagged down his car. One man approached, leaned in, and asked for Senior Chief Warohio. The chief promptly identified himself. The gunman drew a pistol, shot him in the mouth, and then 3 more times in the torso. He died on the spot. The Mau Mau soldiers, masquerading as policemen, punctured the car's tires before making their escape. Fearful of revolution and possible civil war, on 20th October, Governor Sir Evelyn Baring, new to Kenya and with the unanimous support of the British cabinet, declared a state of emergency. The state initiated Operation Jock Scott and arrested more than 180 political leaders across the country and deployed a battalion of British troops on active service for the first time. Most African newspapers were also banned. Amongst the 180 political leaders arrested were 6 Kenya African Union Executive Committee members accused of being organizers of violence. The 6 were Fred Kubai, Bildad Kagea, Achieng' Oneko, Paul Ngei, Kongo Karuma, and Jomo Kenyatta. They were soon to become a national symbol of resistance to colonial rule. The trial was held in West Pokot, in Kapenguria, far from Nairobi. The area lacked basic amenities like telephones and any law libraries. And this was deliberate, not only to frustrate the defense team, but also because the location was also off limit for Kikuyus who would not possess the passes required to enter the location. The reason given for the trial in Kapenguria was that the British claimed that Kenyatta, Oneko, and Kagea had held a secret meeting in Ol Kalou, thus giving them the jurisdiction to hold a trial in the Rift Valley. The trial took 5 months, from December 1952 to April 1953, with the prosecution arguing that in their capacity as KAU officials, Jomo Kenyatta and his co-accused had attempted to persuade the outside world that they were pursuing constitutional methods in their desire for self-government and the return of land allegedly taken away from Africans. Yet at the same time, in secret, they planned, organized, and developed the Mau Mau Society. The judge ruled that they used their positions and legal status in KAU as a cover-up for the underlying illegal purpose, which in reality was to drive Europeans from the colony through armed violence and armed struggle. It was a war of clashing moralities, as both the Europeans and the Mau Mau believed completely in the rightness of their cause. In the short term, the methods adopted by the British, the disproportionate suppression and the arrest of the Kapenguria 6 was a triumph, only in the short term, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. The high price was that the trial of the Kapenguria 6 in 1952 marked the inception of the Mau Mau guerrilla war that lasted until 1955 and was a key event in Kenya's history, which would go on to shape Kenya's political trajectory. Fun fact, it was when our founding father was detained in Maralal that our president was conceived in 1961. That's a historical fact.
Absolutely. And he was there the other day to see, it's called Government House? What's it called? It's called the Samburu House or something. It's called Samburu House or something of that nature.
Now, no comment. No comment on that, but I will talk a little bit about the trial itself.
Yes.
The charge for which they were tried was very interesting. It's still there in our penal code, and
Yeah.
in fact, a lot of people have been charged on it. It's Section 71 of the penal code. They were charged by being members of an unlawful society called Mau Mau,
Yeah.
and 72 for assisting in its management.
Yes.
I think the most recent chargees of these would be Mungiki leaders. So it's interesting to note that they share that with Jomo Kenyatta. But then I'll also talk a little bit about, I think we wanted to talk about the relevance of yesterday's case and today. There was only one key witness, and he was a false witness that tried to link Jomo Kenyatta and the Mau Mau. And there was no other evidence that directly linked the two. That's Jomo Kenyatta and the Mau Mau. So in his testimony, this gentleman was called Roson Masharia, and he said that he claimed that he had taken an oath administered by Jomo himself.
Yes.
And he was very detailed in his lies. He said that the oath involved stripping naked, walking 7 times around an arc of banana leaves, and drinking blood. And he claimed that this oath had taken place in March of 1952. Yet it had been stated that the Mau Mau had not started giving oaths until August of 1952, that year. Anyway, even after the conviction was given and they were charged with 7 years hard labor, he then recanted his testimony, and he said that he had been paid by the Kenyan government to lie. And he had been offered not only a job, but also a round trip to England and a 2-year college course, which the government actually came through and paid about £1,500. But the government also agreed and said, you know what, it's true, we paid this guy, but we didn't pay him to lie, we paid him to testify. Very interesting things there.
See, every time I read the story of the Kapenguria 6, it becomes obvious to me where sometimes Kenya's prosecutorial bad manners came from. Definitely, we learned it from Mzungus. If you ever see DCI arresting someone in Nairobi and locking them up in Narok or Kibwezi or some dirty place, just know this was colonial behavior, and that applies to judicial corruption as well. Now, a story is told on 17 November 1952. An acting superintendent of Kenya CID Special Branch, Superintendent KRT Goodale, applied before a district commissioner, who was also a magistrate, for warrants to arrest Jomo Kenyatta and 5 others on the charges of membership and management of the Mau Mau. He made his application in a remote country station near the northern boundaries of Kenya, 280 miles from Nairobi, and the homes of the accused. That's about 450 kilometers away from Nairobi. That's from here to Mombasa, is that correct? In the meantime, then Governor General Sir Evelyn Baring, he went for a judge called Judge Ransley Thacker, and he got him out of retirement and bribed him with about 20,000 sterling pounds to find Kenyatta guilty and also lock him up. Now, just to give you context, the Governor General was the Queen's eyes in the colony. He was, and still in many cases like in Australia, the Queen's representative. If a judge had been paid 20,000 sterling pounds by a Governor General, it was as good as saying that none other than the Queen had sanctioned the imprisonment of Jomo Kenyatta and the Kapenguria 5. Anyway, before coming to Kenya, Thacker had also served as the Chief Justice of St. Vincent in the West Indies for about 2 years to 1933. He was 42 then. He then became Attorney General of Fiji for 5 years to 1938 and Judge of the Supreme Court in colonial Kenya for about 12 years to 1950. For his 20,000 sterling pound ruling, this is what Thacker wrote. You have successfully plunged many Africans back to a state which shows little humanity. You have persuaded them in secret to murder, burn and commit atrocities which will take many years to forget. You have let loose upon this land a flood of misery and unhappiness affecting the daily lives of the races in it, including your own people. Make no mistake about it, the Mau Mau will be defeated. Never mind the atrocities Thacker was reading out to Kenyatta were committed by the very same empire that had employed him. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, everything wrong in this country, from graft to deceit to murders and wrongful imprisonment, the British did it on another level. We have always been their apprentices.
I completely agree with you. In fact, I couldn't agree more. They say that our country was not begun as a state, it was begun as a company.
Yep, absolutely.
So anything that we have, acquisition, unfair practices, it is original sin.
Kenya was begun as an extraction experiment.
Wow.
I
And
completely
there's a
agree.
historian who said that every revolution in time puts on the robes of the oppressor it has deposed.
Whoa.
Good fact there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on our TV screens on Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Today we had a winning headline from The Standard and no winning cartoon, toxically negative. Don't even go back to them. I would like to leave you with a quote. First of all, let me talk about a lawyer. Fun fact. Kenyatta's lawyer was Dennis Pritt. Very
Yes.
interesting that the road to State House is
called,
actually named
Dennis
Dennis
Pritt.
Pritt.
Yes.
But anyway, let me tell you a quote by a gentleman called Patrick Murray about lawyers. Not that this has any relation to Dennis Pritt, but anyway. A lawyer will do anything to win a case. Sometimes he will even tell the truth. Do have a great day.